What is up, guys? Coach Matt here. So this is going to be the follow-up to my video about the front rack position for the front squat, and this is going to be all the variations you have available to you to do this movement without having to put in the time or training to get into that front rack position. And again, there's a various amount of situations where this could be the case for you. I brought up the point of a powerlifter just trying to use the front squat as a movement to bring up some quad strength, or a bodybuilder who just wants to bring up their quads. Maybe they don't have the time to dedicate to all that mobility work or getting the perfect front rack position. There are still ways you can do this movement, get the same benefits without having to deal with the front rack position. So the first thing I want to address with this video is the topic of the front rack position versus all the other variations that you have against you. And my first thing to say with this is don't feel bullied into thinking the only way you can front squat is with the front rack position. There's so many different cases where people just don't have the time to learn the front rack position, or maybe they're complete beginners and learning the front rack position is more of an intermediate advanced movement. So don't worry too much about that. All the other variations are going to be exact versions of the front squat minus that front rack position. So you're still going to get that same quad strength activation or hypertrophy response depending on what kind of training you're doing, and then you're also going to get that core activation in response to a load that is in front of you. So you're still going to get all the same training responses. The grips are just going to be a little bit different. So don't fret too much that you're not doing the front rack position. It'll be just fine. I'm going to go about these in no particular order. Again, there are so many different variations of this, so we're going to go through a lot of them today. Just pick the one that's most comfortable for you. Again, the training response is going to be pretty much similar across the board. There is some stuff with the SSB that might be a tiny bit different, but pretty much going to be the same exact thing across the board here. So just pick the most comfortable one for you, and that'll be what works. So the first one and most obvious one that everyone thinks about is the simple arm cross instead of the front rack position. Now, this is going to get rid of the mobility requirement for you. So it's much easier to get into that cross arm position than the normal front rack position. However, this is not going to get rid of the issue of the pressure of the weight on your collarbones or the pressure of the weight against your throat. The bar is going to be resting in the same spot that it would for a front rack position. You just won't have to deal with the wrist, back, and other elbow mobility that you might need for the front rack position here. So keep that in mind. And like I said, bar position here is going to be the same as your normal front rack. That bar is going to be resting on top of your collarbones, behind the front portion of your shoulder, and will be up against your throat there. So there will be a little bit of pressure there. In terms of what you're doing with your arms, you're just keeping those elbows nice and high. Again, we're going for that arm parallel to the floor in terms of how high you're keeping your elbows. But other than that, you can kind of do whatever feels comfortable with there's arm cross here. There's no real specific way to go about it. Next one we can go over here would be the front rack position, but utilizing wrist straps to kind of negate the mobility factor here for the front rack position. So cool thing about this variation is that you're pretty much mimicking the front rack position, but the straps allow you to get into the position without worrying too much about where your mobility is at. So if you're trying to really closely mimic that front rack position, this is probably the best one you can go for with that. So what's going to happen here is we're going to secure our wrist straps to the bar, and then the next thing that's going to happen here is we're going to start to wrap our wrist straps around our hand. You want it to be nice and tight, and you want to get your fist as close to the bar as your mobility allows you to. So if you can get your fist all the way up to touching the bar, fantastic. If you cannot, that is something you want to shoot for here. So get those wraps nice and tight around your hands, nice firm grip, and get your fist as close as you can to the bar to try and mimic that front rack feel. Other than that, bar is going in the same spot on top of the collarbones, near that throat area, same deal there. Your next option, and this one negates mobility and pain tolerance altogether, would just be a safety squat bar. So the safety squat bar, with how it's cambered, the weight's going to be kind of forward loaded on you, and the movement is very similar to a front squat. Now, I wouldn't say this exactly mimics the front squat. An SSB squat is kind of its own beast of itself, but the quad activation, the kind of forward load to it, is going to be very, very similar to a front squat. So just doing the normal safety squat bar is going to work out for you. And again, with that, you don't have to worry about anything in terms of upper body mobility or any sort of pain or discomfort, obviously, because this bar is going to be padded. The next level up from this is actually flipping the SSB squat around and doing it backwards per se. Now I will say, if you're in something like a YMCA, of course if you're in a YMCA with a safety squat bar, good on you. But if you're in something like a YMCA or another commercial gym, you are gonna get some weird looks for you, and you're probably gonna get a trainer coming up to you and telling you you're doing this wrong, but you are not. So this is just a good way to put the weight even more forward in front of you to get that more front squat feel. So simply just flip the SSB squat around to the opposite way that you normally would, and boom, you have a safety squat bar front squat per se. And that's how easy it is, guys. That's 4 quick, easy, simple variations to the front squat. Again, it's going to get you the same exact training stimulus that the front squat would, at least with the cross arm and the strap variation. Obviously the SSB will be a tiny bit different, but it's basically going to be the same training stimulus, so don't worry about it too much. Really simple ways to kind of work the front squat into your routine if you don't have all that time to get the perfect front rack position. Again, don't worry too much if you can or cannot do the front rack position. These variations will work just fine. You'll get the same training response. Don't stress it too much. That's it, guys. Super easy variations for you. Try these out, and when you're ready, you can hop on to the other video for this to learn how to do the front rack position and do it without discomfort. All right, guys, thanks so much for checking out the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you all next week. I'll see you guys.